His walkout's going to be 20 minutes. He's going to greet everybody along the way. He's going to pray for 20 minutes before
And our boss, Zach, is going to be losing his mind.
like, oh my God. Pay-per-view
Those long walks are the death of him. What's up, everybody? Laura Sanko here, joined again with the great Dean Thomas, the wizard of the UFC. He gets paid for his knowledge between rounds. How cool is that? And he's here joining us on the regular, which I very much appreciate. And in this video, we're going to talk about the co-main event of UFC 283, which is taking place down in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And it is the UFC's first quadrilogy, a word I don't even know really exists, but we had to make one because these guys are fighting for the fourth time. And of course, I'm talking about Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. And I don't know, a lot of fights I would want to see 4 times, but I'm not mad at this one, Dean. I'm not mad at it.
Well, how could you be? Like, literally, it's not a moment in any of those times that they fought have been boring, and they've been so different in their own way.
Yep.
That you almost go into this fight thinking it's a brand new fight. Even though they fought 4 times, it still could be considered a brand new fight because both of them have gotten better. Both of them are in different places of their careers, different places of their lives. And I think this fight is going to be extremely exciting, especially where it's taking place in Brazil. I think that is, it makes this fight magical.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about it when we did our main event breakdown in a separate video, but this crowd really is an X factor in unto itself, especially since the UFC hasn't been there in a few years. And these fans are they're just frothing at the mouth to have some fights to be able to go to. It's such a big part of their culture that, man, I think it's going to be a huge advantage for the Brazilian fighters to have that behind them. But you know, you talked about it in the last video. It can be something that motivates the opponents as well. I mean, all that negativity just makes you want to go out there and prove people wrong.
Well, you know, one thing that Brandon Moreno did when the last time we've seen them together in public inside the octagon, Figgy went to the octagon and he tried to stare Brandon Moreno down. He tried to, you know, punk him, so to say. And Brandon Moreno quickly disarmed him to the point where it almost looked like it
was almost awkward.
Yeah, it was awkward because he tried, you know, Figgy tried to do one thing and Brandon was like, you're not going to do that to me. Not today, homie. Today's my day, but you know what? We're going to be friends today. And it was awkward. And I think Brandon Moreno has that charm about him. Charming is disarming. And I believe he's going to have that charm. And while the crowd will be against him, I don't think that Brandon Moreno will allow that to affect him. 2 reasons why. One, in the last time they fought, I think Brandon Moreno was emotionally invested in a negative way, and it affected him. You saw him playing around in the fight, missed a few opportunities because he was kind of playing around. And I think that was a bad sign. I think he recognized that. And 2, I think he's just such a warrior. Like Brandon Moreno is just such a warrior. I mean, we're talking about a guy who willed himself into this position where he's at. He didn't get nothing handed to him. He fought his way back into this position, and he looks fantastic.
He fought his way back into the UFC.
Yes, he fought his way back into the UFC and then to a title, then lost it. So there's no way I think he lets the crowd get to him. I think that he's such a charming, lovable, but also headstrong individual that he's not going to allow that crowd to affect him.
I like what you said at the top, and I completely agree with you. It's like each of these fights is its own story, and they're different stories. And so it's difficult and it's fascinating to think, okay, we saw the first fight was Deiveson Figueiredo and his aggression and his power, and Brandon Moreno sort of rising to the moment late in that fight, realizing that he had what it took to hang with Figueiredo as Figueiredo started to realize, oh, you know, my gas tank is failing me just enough to where this kid's really starting to come on. I do find it interesting, though, that had there not been the point deduction, had there not been the groin kick, Figueiredo would have won that fight on the judges' scorecards. And that's an interesting factor to me, because then you transition to the second fight, and it's almost as if Brandon took the momentum from the last couple of rounds of the first fight and just carried it right into that second fight. He was the aggressor. He was the one who went out there with the confidence, knowing that he had what it took to take on the boogeyman of the flyweight division, the guy who's, you know, got the most or has so much knockout power in that division, and was able to get a finish. So Brandon's the only one in this quadrilogy that's gotten the finish. And then to your point, in the third fight, a very, very close fight, but Figueiredo, it's sort of like it was a Goldilocks fight for Figueiredo, where too aggressive, not aggressive enough. And I feel like in that third fight, he really kind of hit a good middle spot for his style. He was using the calf kick. You could tell he had been training with Henry Cejudo because he implemented his both offensive and counter wrestling quite a bit more than he had in the other fights. And Brandon had to try to make adjustments. It was just super, super close, but Figgy got that one as well. All of that to say, this last one, it's not just who's going to make these technical adjustments, right? It's the psychology of moving through these various fights and figuring out how to get one over on someone that you know so well. They have shared the octagon for so long together. How do you go about even structuring a camp and a game plan in a situation like that?
Well, I think, you know, like I said, they're so in different places of their career for themselves. You know, Figgy's talking about going up to 135 and I mean, obviously this belt is important to him, but he's a guy who, when they fought the second time, he gave up. Right. He looked like he looked a step behind to Brandon Moreno for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason was, but he was a complete step behind. So for him, I don't think he's got a lot of pressure on himself. He's a champ. I think either way he goes up to 135. So I don't think he's going to be as motivated as he probably should be. I think the crowd being in Brazil will help him get motivated from the start. But deep down inside, I think there could be a lack of motivation for him because he's.
Do you think that is why, or maybe it's unrelated? Do you think that that's why he opted not to train with Cejudo for this camp? He's in Brazil training at his own Team Figgy camp? Because to me, I would think, you know, the fight where you had a lot of success was the fight where you had your camp at Fight Ready, and you could see some of the things that they had been working on with him, and it worked out really well in the fight. Are you surprised, I guess, that he chose not to do that again?
No, and I think it's for the underlying reasons is that, and we know this about a lot of Brazilian fighters, is that they fight extremely emotionally. They have an extreme emotion about them, and their team around them is emotional. And sometimes they put peer pressure on you to do things for loyalty purposes or to, you know, satisfy their hunger for their emotion. So I could imagine that he had some people in his ear going, why are you going to train in Arizona? Stay here with us. We're your family. The fight's here. You're going to be here, blah, 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 blah. And then he was probably like, all right, cool. And then he's just, and I have a feeling that's going to be the case. I would not be surprised to see him, and for that reason, there's a comfort in that.
Yeah.
There's a comfort in that. And for that reason, I would not be surprised to see him struggle with the weight. I would not see him surprised as the rounds get longer for him to start struggling because he had that comfort of staying home. So believe me when I say this, I think he's in a completely different place, and I don't want to write his story for him, but I don't see it going well for him.
And on the flip side, you've got Brandon Moreno, who's also had camp changes, right? I mean, almost every single one of these fights, and it wasn't well publicized, but, and I got to make sure I get this right, I want to say it was the third fight. So the third fight between these two was after he had left Entrim and was training at the PI, but really didn't have a coach per se. I mean, he's got his jiu-jitsu coach who is absolutely phenomenal. He's got Capetillo, who's in charge of his boxing, but he didn't really have a head coach. Then he came to Kansas City for the Kai Kara France fight. And I know from seeing firsthand a lot of the things that they were working on in terms of like slightly altering the way that he stood, a little bit less lead leg heavy to avoid the calf kicks, not just of Kai Kara France, but of Davis and Figueiredo. You know, some of the ways that he would wrestle, wall wrestling, all the things that, you know, that Glory was known really well for. And now, of course, he's not at Glory anymore and is kind of doing his own thing again at the PI with coaches he's still very familiar with. Do you think that has any effect, I guess, or is Brandon just at the point where it doesn't matter where he's training, he's going to get the right things done because of his level of discipline?
I think he's going to get the right things done because of his level of discipline, because
Yeah.
you don't go from where he went and have all them obstacles in a way and pass with flying colors the way he did if you don't have that type of mindset and that mentality. I think he gets this done regardless. And the coach changes, while it can affect him, I think he's going to put it aside.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, and I saw the differences right away. His stance changed. Like I mean, his hand positioning,
Mm-hmm.
his chin tucked a little more. And I could see those changes right away. But that's what he needed. And he's not going to lose that because now he's training with somebody else. So like,
Yeah.
I think he picked up what he needed to pick up for the time being. I mean, obviously it was his responsibility to work on it and make it work for him. Maybe in the Kai France fight, there was some things that you could see he was still working on, but he figured it out. And I think now he's got more time. He had more time to figure it out. And I think he's going to be phenomenal down in Brazil. I really do. I think he's the best flyweight in the world.
And now he's working with Saif Saud as well, which I think is a really cool. I like that. I like that matchup as a pair, knowing what I know about Saif and just the personality style. Brandon responds well to the type of cornering that you see from Saif Saud, which is, he doesn't mind getting yelled at. He doesn't mind getting in the middle of a round. It's motivating to him. When you think about Brandon training with Saif or Saif at least having an influence over the game plan, do you think we're going to see big differences like we did when he was at Glory, or do you think we're going to see sort of more, old school Brandon?
No, I think we're going to see. I think Brandon's going to take what he got from Glory and make the adjustments, and I think he's going to try to figure, blend it all together, all of it together. Hopefully, he found it in sparring and was able to blend it all together, so he's not, guessing he's not, playing a guessing game while he's out there. He's hasn't figured it out. But I don't see Saif as and I don't want to make this sound bad, but I don't think Saif is the very tactical coach as he is more of the motivating and technical. But I don't know. I don't necessarily want to say he's as tactical as someone like Krause. So I think that's going to be up to Brandon to kind of get those tactics down. Now, Saif is very technical and he's very motivating, but I think he's still kind of like, listen, you go out there,
and he'll make sure you're in ridiculously good shape too, which Brandon always is anyway.
He'll make sure you're in ridiculously good shape. He'll make sure that you pull the trigger, and he'll make sure that you execute. But I think it's going to be up to Brandon to have his map already laid out for him to execute. And he should at this point, because he knows himself better. It's going to be hard for him to go over to Saif and be like, all right, Saif, what should I do? Because Safe's going to be like, dude, I don't know what you're good at.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're good at, but you need to. So I think it's better for Brandon to be the one actually putting together his own game plan, because he knows what he's good at. And hell, he fought this dude 3 times already.
Yep. What do you feel like? I mean, there's so much footage, there's so much time. What do you feel like is one thing that Brandon really needs to focus on or to make happen in this fight in order to turn the tables in his direction? And same thing for Figgy.
Well, I think Brandon is the better fighter. He's got, obviously, I think he's got the long 1-2. He's got a long jab, so that from the torso up, I think he controls that area. Now, obviously, with the leg kicks last time, that affected that because he couldn't, in the third fight, he had a hard time dealing with those leg kicks. So I think he has to be able to make sure that he can adjust his stance throughout the fight. So, and sometimes we think so one-dimensionally, so black and white, that we're like, okay, well, I'm going to stand this way. But you should be able to adjust your stance 50 times in a round, depending on what your objective is. So he's going to have to be able to make those adjustments mid-fight, whatever it is his objective is in the moment, like changing his stance and objective moment to moment. And then I think that he just can't get caught. And when good fighters get caught, it sucks, because sometimes they're the better fighter, but you just got caught. And I think that for him, I think that if he gets caught, he's going to be in more trouble than if Figgy gets caught. I think because and Brandon has shown he had a good chin, but Figgy's still Figgy. He's still got a lot of pop. So Brandon just has to make sure he doesn't get caught and just like with some weird punch, and then it takes him out of his game, and then he's no longer fighting within himself. So he has to make sure his defense stays sound. He's got to make sure he's adjusting his stances and just using his length to his ability.
And for Figueiredo, I mean, do you feel like he's going to go back to sort of fight number one, where he was the aggressor, and that aggression and those power shots were really sort of swung the momentum in his favor early? Or do you think that potential fear of, oh man, is my cardio going to drop off?
No, and here's where his advantages are early in the fight, is because if he does fight that way early, those are his best chances of catching Moreno. And if he catches him, he can end the fight or at least change the fight. But I think that he slowed down because he realized how tired he got. Like, there's nothing that'll slow you down more than the idea of getting tired. Getting tired will take you completely, like, not even getting tired, but the idea of getting tired.
The fear of what that feels like when you're there.
You're like, no, I'm not throwing no more punches because I don't want to get tired. So, but I think in Brazil, with the emotion, now come on, now I promise you this: his walkout's going to be 20 minutes. He's going to greet everybody along the way. He's going to pray for 20 minutes.
And our boss, Zach, is going to be losing his mind.
Like, oh my God. Pay-per-view
walks are the death of him.
Yeah. And that's what's going to happen. Yeah. But what that does, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on you. Sometimes it forces you to fight fast early. It turns you into a front runner. And he's naturally a front runner. So I think he's going to be a front runner and hope for the best. If it doesn't work out, he's going to be like, hey, guys, I'm sorry. Yeah. And then they're going to be like, don't worry, you fought your heart out. You're still our champ. And then he's going to go to 135. That's the way I see it.
He's already been talking about it.
Yeah.
So I agree. I mean, the fact that he's already got his mindset on a different weight class, I don't know if I love that, but it is what it is. I mean, he's got his eye on a higher, and we know from history that he has a really difficult time making 125. And to your point, that comfort level is a little bit concerning, but it remains to be seen. Maybe he will just make weight, no problem. Who knows?
He'll come in like 5 pounds under, bouncing around like, come on, yo.
Yeah. And I'll be like, Dean, what were we talking about?
I'm like, I don't like. Did you say that they paid me for this? They paid me for my knowledge? Are you serious?
Well, at the end of the day, honestly, a lot of analyst work is really educated guesswork. So.
It is. It's all educated guesswork, because, especially in MMA, because of that spontaneity and that unpredictability.
For sure.
Like I said, if you get caught, nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
But I think the better fighter between those two is going to be Brandon Moreno. He just can't get caught.
Well, we will see, and we will see very, very soon when UFC 283 goes down. It's going to be a phenomenal card. Don't miss it on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Dean will be on the ESPN desk in Bristol, Connecticut. I will be on site in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, doing the behind-the-scenes stuff. So we're both going to participate. It's going to be a phenomenal night of fights. The rest of the card is sick as well. Basically, Brazil against the world is what this card is all about. So we will see how that equation shakes out. Guys, thank you so much. Dean, thank you, as always, for taking time for me. We appreciate it very, very much. And hopefully we can talk you into coming on here again.
I got you.
All right. Guys, thank you so much. Click like, click subscribe. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time.